Hi, I want to just do a short, quick video um, for my evaluation for 2020 2021. I would feel it would be remiss of me not to attach some sort of reflective piece at this moment. So I want to go back to the March through June 2020 when the pandemic first hit. And I will tell you that I had lots of support and encouragement from Libby Lowry. If I could thank her again, I absolutely would. I had used Google Classroom before, but I hadn't known as much that I needed to do and sort of the ins and outs. And I went to her quite a bit, and she helped me work through things. She told me something that an old boss also had told me, that you're not going to make any mistake that I haven't already made myself. And that is where your learning will be. And that's absolutely true. When I did make mistakes, I had to fix it. I had to go back and figure out what I did wrong. And it was definitely eye opening for me, and it was definitely helpful to me. So even through whatever struggle and problem that it did cause me. Also, Amy Kuntz helped me a great deal during that time too. And then I had this period of time in the summer where I still was kind of playing around and working through things. The third thing is we all had time. We were at home. The unknown was happening, and we were living through it, and it gave me time to play around with Google Classroom and videoing and all these other things that I had kind of roughly done a little bit myself. So as the new school year approached and the numbers started to increase, I did volunteer to go virtual if needed. And that did end up happening. And there I was, the new school year, and I was, creating digital virtual calendars and assignments and slides and all kinds of videos. I was and benefited from a class that I took a couple years ago at Saginaw Valley called Instructional Design. That really did benefit me. I was already a little comfortable and had equipment at home that I was using to videotape for that class, so that really did help me a lot. And I got into, I called it this 3-week zone in the beginning, where when I was meeting with kids and trying to get them to participate in Google Classroom, I was always dealing with whatever week that we were on. So an example is, if we were on week 15, we were always talking about week 15, and that's the questions that would come up in some of our Google Meets and the things that I would be teaching. But when I was sitting here virtually, I was in week 15, but I was grading week 14. So I was looking at problems or concerns that they had in assignments on week 14 because they had just handed it in. And then I was also creating week 16, things for the future that they would see in the upcoming week. So there was this mix of 3-week craziness, I called it sometimes, that was in my head and on the computer and all over my desk that I had to kind of work through. And that definitely was, something I didn't expect. There were moments where it's definitely felt a little isolated, even though you were constantly working and keeping ahead of the game, I called it. But you definitely felt a little isolated and needs some human contact, and definitely missing kids in your classroom. Once we got closer to week 19, and we saw numbers go up of children that wanted to return to school, or families that wanted to send their kids back, I was then going to return to my classroom, and that was a whole new thing again. Immediately, I felt like I was the breakfast waitress. It's kind of comical now to think about, but I was, breakfast was something we were serving in the morning, and I was taking lunch orders. So I had this whole kind of comical slapstick thing of, okay, I'm taking your orders. There were also concerns about just the health and safety things of the kids wearing the mask, and bathroom breaks, hand sanitizing, lining up. And I don't know, I'll just be very honest, the kids were amazing. They were very resilient. They adjusted very well. It was incredible to see with our guidance and our example, I guess, that they really did do a really nice job with all of that. There were heartbreaking moments too where, I had students that had to go into quarantine because of exposure of family members or whatnot, or they would come back after quarantine and tell us, what had happened with family members and COVID. So they're young, but they have all the same concerns we do about illness and their family. So, it was heartfelt and very touching sometimes and tearful, but we got through it. Some of the other things, this year that we didn't anticipate too is the bureaucracy, I guess. A lot of work went into keeping attendance. I know I was crazy about it. I didn't want to screw it up. We kept a form in our books where we had Google Meets that we made sure we had track and evidence of our two-way contacts. I got very obsessive about it. I did a document like this with my class list all year, and I have whenever they were at a Google Meet or an email or a comment, or then eventually when I had kids in person, because I just wanted to do a good job and make sure that I was making my two-way contacts and that I had evidence of it all the time. So I would tell you, behind me, the counter back here, I have a small arsenal of paperwork that I kept of slides and our Remind app and all kinds of conversations. And I know it's weird, but it's all digitally, but I still am one of those people, I got to print it out and I got to hold it in my hand, I got to see it kind of thing. So I probably have a couple trees worth of paperwork back here that I've been holding on to. In closing, this was all a year of unknowns, but we did some good planning. Mrs. Warren had lots of conversations and included us in every possible thing that our staff could think through. One thing that was a nice surprise is my kids did have growth. I had students that were mine all for the whole year. I had some students that were virtual with either me or Carla, Mrs. Cook, for the year. And a nice surprise was they did have growth in math and reading. I think I only had two that didn't make any kind of growth, fell back a little bit. But that was a nice surprise, that we did have growth through all the chaos and challenges that this was. I personally had lots of growth. I think even all of our staff members think, we did all we could do and then some, and we kept doing all we could do. We did whatever was thrown at us to make it work and make it happen. And I think, over the next month or two before our next school year starts, I think people need to rest and they need to celebrate getting through the year and all that they did do that was a challenge to them and out of their comfort zone. I also just want to say thank you to Mrs. Warren for being so fair and honest and understanding of all of us during this challenging year. That was much appreciated. And I said I'm not going to cry. And so thank you. Thank you for a wonderful year, and I hope that you have a great summer.